The U.S. government has made strong accusations against the maker of the EpiPen. The FDA says Pfizer knew about malfunctions in its auto-injectors, but did nothing to fix the problem. And it says people died. Vicadopia has more.
It's the shot that can mean the difference between surviving a severe allergic reaction and dying from anaphylactic shock. So when the manufacturer discovered some EpiPens failed to work, it issued a voluntary recall back in March. But the results of inspections by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration suggest there was and still is a serious problem. In a warning letter sent to the maker Pfizer this week, the FDA states the company knew about the potential defects 3 years ago. Your own data show that you received hundreds of complaints that your EpiPens failed to operate during life-threatening emergencies, including some situations in which patients subsequently died. The 7-page letter says bluntly that the company repeatedly failed to investigate the problem and fix it. This health law professor questions why regulators left it up to the company to voluntarily issue a recall.
Health Canada had exactly the same responsibility as the FDA to put a plan on Pfizer of how to deal with consumer complaints and to bring about a recall when those complaints were serious.
This allergist regularly prescribes EpiPens to her patients. In spite of the disturbing details by the FDA, she says the injectors are still crucial.
I think it would be tragic if it made people less likely to carry the #1, meaning first-line treatment for anaphylactic reaction, which is epinephrine in the form of an auto-injector.
As for Pfizer, the company denies it knew of hundreds of EpiPen failures and insists it only knows 2 cases when they didn't work and the patients were fine.
We really are confident in our products, but we understand the concerns and we continue to be committed to working with the FDA and with regulators globally.
While the FDA says Pfizer has recalled its defective EpiPens, it's giving the company until the end of the month to fix its problems with production or face legal action. Vicadopia, CBC News, Toronto.
One group that has made its stance on immigration very clear is Quebec's La Meute. Members are vehemently opposed to illegal immigrants and use racist and derogatory language to describe immigrants online. But while far-right groups in the United States have been behind violent attacks, a recent demonstration by La Meute saw a twist of events. Jonathan Montpetit explains.
Everyone knows that you're a Nazi.
Angry, frustrated group of racists don't get to define who we are as a country.
Quebec's far right was once pretty marginal and obscure, but is now stepping out of the shadows. And no group has attracted more attention recently than La Meute, the Wolf Pack. They are by far the largest group in the province, and maybe even the country. The group was formed in a sugar shack in the Beauce in 2015. Ex-soldier Patrick Baudry was one of the founding members. He now leads the group from his home in the woods north of Quebec City.
Au début de la meute, à la création de la meute, qu'est-ce qui est arrivé? On était beaucoup plus sensible à l'islam radical et il y a eu la montée en puissance de Daesh. Il y a eu ensuite le flot migratoire de l'Europe qui nous a interpellés, qui nous a fait dire à nous, qui étaient 3 anciens militaires au départ pour fonder la meute, que, attends une minute, là, ça ressemble à quelque chose qu'on connaît, ça, nous.
La Meute was first nothing more than a private Facebook group. Members shared their fears about radical Islam in Quebec, even though Muslims make up only 3% of the population. The Facebook page grew quickly. It now lists more than 43,000 members. The vast majority are from Quebec, though perhaps only 5,000 are active at any given time. They fundraise, organize speeches, circulate pamphlets and petitions, and hold protests. For many who join, it is the first time they meet others who see the world the same way they do.
C'est toute une découverte quand tu découvres que, wow, t'es pas seul. T'es pas seul. Il y a plein de gens et des gens qui se regroupent, puis qui se regroupent dans une belle atmosphère, qui se regroupent dans une atmosphère qui est saine.
La Meute's main Facebook page is off limits to the public. Behind closed doors, members comment on Quebec politics and attack their critics. Sometimes they engage in conspiracy theories. Often they exchange Islamophobic memes or use racist language to speak about immigrants. It is illegal immigration, not radical Islam, that has dominated Lemut's discussion threads since late July. That's when the number of asylum seekers crossing illegally into Quebec jumped dramatically. Lemut's leaders want tougher border controls to stop the influx.
Le Québec, le Canada, les frontières sont virtuelles. C'est qu'on va traverser les frontières illégalement, puis aucune conséquence. Vous allez s'accepter quand même. La population est enragée de ça, on le voit, la réaction que ça fait.
Lemut hoped by holding a protest in Quebec City, they could bring that message to a larger audience. Around 400 members met first in an underground parking garage. But counter-demonstrators circled the building, blocking anyone from getting in or out. And while masked protesters tussled with police, Lemut stayed inside for 5 hours. When they finally emerged, they marched the National Assembly in silence and declared victory.
We made a point. We made our point.
Even anti-racism activists agreed.
C'est une grande victoire pour des relations publiques pour la meute à cause de ces 10 casseurs-là qui n'ont pas su se tenir.
The protest was a critical moment for Lemut. It was the largest far-right gathering in the province in recent memory. It was organized, disciplined, and grabbed the public's attention. But with attention comes scrutiny. Scrutiny from politicians and an energized anti-racism movement. And more importantly, from ordinary Quebecers deciding on what values should inform public life in the province. Jonathan Mopetsi, CBC News, Montreal.
If it wasn't for the Inuit oral stories, it would be much harder to find the wrecks.
Inuit in Nunavut played a huge part in finding HMS Erebus 3 years ago. Oral stories led Parks Canada to the wrecks of Sir John Franklin's lost ships from his doomed 1845 expedition. Now, as Kate Kyle reports, Inuit in Johaven are acting as guardians of the historic site and sharing its history.
Every few hours, Mark Ulikatak walks sections of Saunitalik Island, Inuktitut, for the Place of Bones. Located on the Northwest Passage, the barren terrain is a short boat ride from Franklin's sunken ship, HMS Erebus.
See if there's any sailboats coming through. That's what we're here for.
Ulikatak is one of 17 Inuit hired to watch over Franklin's ships, the Erebus and the Terror. Part of their job is to report on any unauthorized activity in the area of the National Historic Site. It's the first to be co-managed by Parks Canada and Inuit in Nunavut.
Being able to have people directly part not only of the decision-making but part of the action.
The degree of preservation is astonishing.
Since Erebus's discovery in 2014, archaeologists have spent more than 250 hours exploring the wreck, recovering 64 artifacts and even DNA samples. The team plans to explore deeper into the ship and right into Franklin's cabin in the years ahead, cross-referencing any significant findings with Inuit oral history. Inuit will also be trained to help document new artifacts.
And we want people to be able not only to see them, but to be part of learning about them and them training them into directly participating in the research and the understanding of the story.
With the steady decline of sea ice in the Northwest Passage, Parks Canada says the Guardian program will eventually host visitors to the site, sharing Franklin's story, but also how traditional Inuit knowledge help piece it all together.
The nearby community of Johaven is excited about the future of the Franklin site and any related tourism and jobs.
It has an impact by hiring local people in the community. If it wasn't for the Inuit oral stories, it would be much harder to find the wrecks.
At least one cruise ship is adding the site to its itinerary. Passengers on board will hear from archaeologists and Inuit, each of whom will share their interpretation of this evolving Arctic mystery. Kate Kyle, CBC News, Saunitalik Island on the Northwest Passage.
Before we go tonight, a recap of our top story. Hurricane Irma has already torn through the Caribbean, destroying countless homes and leaving massive damage in its wake. At least 22 people are dead, and that number is expected to rise. This morning, the storm was downgraded to a Category 4 hurricane, but it's still packing 250-kilometer-per-hour winds. Some experts say Irma will regain speed and hit Florida this weekend as a Category 5 storm. More than 5.5 million people in the state have been asked to leave, and officials say the time to do that is running out. That is the National for this Friday night. For news at any hour, including all the updates on Hurricane Irma, you can always go to cbcnews.ca. I'm Susan Bonner. Thank you for watching.